My beloved friends, I see you there, caught between knowing what you should do and actually doing it. I see the dreams that burn in your hearts, the callings that whisper to your souls, the changes you know you need to make. And I also see what holds you back, the fear, the doubt, the overwhelming feeling that you're not ready, not worthy, not equipped to take the steps that would transform your life. Today, I want to speak to you about something that most spiritual teachers avoid discussing, something that sounds harsh but is actually one of the greatest acts of love you can show yourself. The necessity of forcing yourself to take action, even when every part of your human nature wants to remain comfortable, safe, and unchanged. When I walked among you, I encountered countless people who were trapped, not by their circumstances, but by their own inaction. The paralyzed man who had been lying by the pool of Bethesda for 38 years, waiting for someone else to help him into the healing waters. The rich young ruler who knew exactly what he needed to do to find the life he was seeking, but couldn't bring himself to act on that knowledge. The disciples who wanted to follow me, but kept finding excuses to delay their commitment. These were not bad people. They were not lacking in desire or good intentions. But they had fallen into the trap that destroys more dreams and wastes more potential than any external obstacle ever could. The paralysis of overthinking. The seduction of waiting for the perfect moment. The illusion that someday action will become easier if they just wait a little longer. But here is the truth that will set you free. That perfect moment will never come. You will never feel completely ready. You will never have all the answers before you begin. You will never eliminate all risk or guarantee success before you take your first step. The people who transform their lives, who fulfill their purposes, who make a difference in this world, are not those who feel the most confident or prepared. They are those who learn to act in spite of their fears, to move forward in spite of uncertainty, to force themselves to do what they know they should do, even when every instinct screams at them to wait, to hesitate, to remain where they are. This is not about becoming harsh with yourself or ignoring wisdom. This is about recognizing that your soul came into this human experience to grow, to serve, to express its divine nature in tangible ways. And that expression requires action. It requires movement. It requires the courage to step out of the comfortable prison of inaction into the uncertain but infinitely more alive realm of purposeful engagement with life. When I said, "Follow me" to the fishermen by the Sea of Galilee, I didn't give them months to think about it, to weigh all the pros and cons, to develop a comfortable transition plan. I called them to immediate action. Come, and I will make you fishers of men. And those who responded immediately, who forced themselves to act despite their fears and uncertainties, became part of something far greater than they ever could have imagined. Today, I want to teach you how to break free from the paralysis that has been keeping you small. I want to show you how to harness the divine power within you to force yourself into the actions that will transform your life, not through violence or harshness toward yourself, but through the loving firmness that a good parent shows a child who is afraid to leave their comfort zone but needs to grow. This is not about becoming someone who acts recklessly or without wisdom. This is about becoming someone who acts from divine guidance, even when their human nature resists. This is about learning to be more afraid of wasting your precious life than you are of making mistakes or facing temporary discomfort. Are you ready to discover the spiritual and psychological keys to forcing yourself into the action that will set you free? Are you willing to learn how to move beyond the endless planning and preparation into the realm where transformation actually occurs? Then let us begin this journey from paralysis to divine action. My dear ones, the first truth you must understand about forcing yourself to take action is this: there is a sacred urgency to your life that your comfortable, procrastinating mind wants to ignore. You were not given this human experience to waste it in endless preparation for a life you never actually live. When I cleansed the temple, overturning the tables of the money changers, I was demonstrating this sacred urgency. I did not schedule a committee meeting to discuss the problem. I didn't wait for a more convenient time when it might cause less disruption. I did not spend months developing a detailed plan for temple reform. I saw what needed to be done, and I acted immediately and powerfully. This was not impulsiveness. This was divine timing in action. There are moments when the universe opens doors for you, when circumstances align to support your growth and service, when divine energy is available to carry you forward into your next level of being. But these moments require immediate response. They require you to force yourself past your hesitations and into alignment with what wants to emerge through you. Most people miss these divine opportunities because they are waiting for certainty, for guarantees, for all their fears to disappear before they act. But divine timing rarely accommodates human comfort. God's invitations often come disguised as challenges, as uncomfortable calls to growth, as opportunities that require you to stretch beyond your current capacity. Let me share with you the deeper understanding of why forcing yourself to take action is actually an act of spiritual obedience. Your soul chose to incarnate in human form for a specific purpose: to learn, to grow, to serve, to express divine love in unique ways that only you can manifest. Every day that you remain trapped in inaction is a day that you resist your soul's calling, that you delay the very experiences you came here to have. Your resistance to action is not protecting you. It is robbing you. It is robbing you of the joy of discovering what you are truly capable of. It is robbing you of the satisfaction of serving your purpose in the world. It is robbing you of the growth that comes only through facing challenges with divine support. Your fear of making mistakes or facing discomfort is keeping you from the very experiences that would develop your spiritual strength, deepen your faith, and expand your capacity to serve love in the world. When you force yourself to take action despite your fears, you are not being harsh with yourself. You are being loyal to your highest nature. You are choosing your divine potential over your human limitations. You are saying yes to the life your soul wants to live, rather than the safe, small existence your ego wants to maintain. But how do you distinguish between divine urgency and human impatience? How do you know when to force yourself into action and when to wait for clearer guidance? The key is learning to recognize the difference between inspired action and forced action. Inspired action comes from a deep knowing that something wants to emerge through you, even when you don't feel ready or qualified. It carries an energy of rightness, of alignment, even when it feels scary. You know you need to act, not because you're trying to force an outcome, but because something within you is calling you forward. Forced action, on the other hand, comes from ego-driven agendas, from trying to make something happen according to your timeline rather than divine timing. It carries an energy of desperation, of pushing against resistance rather than moving with divine flow. Here are the signs that it's time to force yourself into action. You have been preparing for the same goal for months or years without taking substantial steps forward. This is a clear sign that your preparation has become procrastination, that you are using the need to be ready as an excuse to avoid growth. You keep receiving the same guidance or opportunities, but finding reasons to delay. When the universe repeatedly presents you with the same invitation, it's time to accept it, rather than continuing to ask for more signs. You feel a deep sense of frustration or stagnation in your current situation, but you keep avoiding the actions you know would create change. Your frustration is often your soul's way of telling you that you're resisting your own growth. Others are consistently encouraging you to take specific actions, but you keep finding reasons why you can't or shouldn't. Sometimes divine guidance comes through the people around us who can see our potential more clearly than we can. If you have a persistent sense that time is running out, that if you don't act soon, you will miss an important opportunity for growth or service. This urgency is often divine timing, calling you to alignment. When you recognize these signs, the spiritual response is to force yourself past your resistances and into action. Not reckless action, but action aligned with divine guidance. Not desperate action, but action rooted in trust that you are supported by infinite love and wisdom. Remember, my beloved, that courage is not the absence of fear. It is feeling the fear and acting anyway because you trust divine love more than you trust your fears. Every person who has ever accomplished anything meaningful has had to force themselves past their comfort zone into the realm where transformation occurs. The sacred urgency I speak of is not about rushing or being impatient. It is about recognizing that your life has divine purpose, that your time here is precious, and that the world needs what you have to offer. It is about choosing to honor your soul's calling, even when your human nature would prefer to stay safe and comfortable. Now, my beloved children, before you can effectively force yourself into action, you must understand the nature of the resistance that has been keeping you trapped. This resistance is not your enemy. It is a protective mechanism of your ego that once served you, but has now become a prison that limits your divine potential. When the disciples were in the boat during the storm, their resistance to walking on water was not based on spiritual wisdom. It was based on their limited understanding of what was possible. They were trapped by their conditioning, by their beliefs about the nature of reality, by their fear of stepping beyond the familiar into the realm of divine possibility. This is exactly what happens to you when you resist taking action toward your highest calling. Your ego presents you with seemingly reasonable arguments for why you should wait, why you're not ready, why it's too risky, but these arguments are not based on truth. They are based on your ego's desire to maintain control and avoid the unknown. Let me reveal to you the most common forms of resistance that keep people trapped in inaction. The perfectionism trap. This is the belief that you must have everything figured out, all your skills perfected, all possible problems solved before you can begin. But perfectionism is not about excellence, it is about fear. It is the ego's way of ensuring that you never have to face the vulnerability of putting your authentic self into the world. The truth is that you learn by doing, not by preparing to do. You develop skills through practice, not through planning. You gain wisdom through experience, not through thinking about experience. Every master was once a beginner who forced themselves to start before they felt ready. Leçon, the comparison prison. This is when you look at others who are already successful in areas where you want to grow and convince yourself that you could never achieve what they have achieved. You see their current level of mastery and forget that they step 5. Act as if success is inevitable. When you align with divine purpose, success becomes a question of timing, not possibility. Act with the confidence that comes from knowing you are supported by the creative force of the universe. This doesn't mean being reckless, but it means moving forward with faith rather than fear. This confidence becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, attracting the resources, opportunities, and support you need to succeed. But what does it look like practically to force yourself into action using divine power? In Career and Purpose, instead of waiting until you feel qualified for your dream job, apply anyway, trusting that if it's aligned with your purpose, divine intelligence will either open the door or redirect you to something better. Force yourself to take the steps. Update your resume, make the calls, have the conversations, while surrendering the timeline and specific outcomes. In relationships, instead of waiting for the perfect moment to have difficult conversations, force yourself to speak your truth with love, trusting that authentic communication serves everyone involved, even when it's temporarily uncomfortable. In health and well-being, instead of waiting until you feel like exercising or eating well, force yourself to take loving care of your body as an act of honoring the divine life force within you. Frame healthy choices as spiritual practice rather than personal discipline. In creative expression, instead of waiting until you feel inspired, force yourself to show up to your creative practice regularly, trusting that inspiration comes through action, not before it. In spiritual growth, instead of waiting until meditation or prayer feels easy, force yourself to maintain these practices, especially when they feel difficult, knowing that resistance often signals the approach of breakthrough. The key to using divine force effectively is understanding that it's not about overpowering your resistance, but about aligning with a power that is naturally stronger than resistance. When you align your will with divine will, you don't have to fight against yourself. You simply follow the current of love that is always flowing toward growth, service, and authentic expression. This divine force is not harsh or violent. It is the firm, loving energy of a parent who insists that their child learn to walk even though falling down is uncomfortable. It is the energy of love that refuses to let you remain small when you were created for greatness. Remember, every prophet, every saint, every person who has made a significant contribution to human consciousness has had to learn to force themselves past human limitations into divine possibility. They were not superhuman, they were humans who learned to channel divine power through their human will. This same power is available to you. The same force that parted the Red Sea, that raised the dead, that transforms human consciousness, is ready to work through your actions, when those actions are aligned with love and service. My beloved friends, now I want to teach you one of the most practical and powerful secrets of forcing yourself to take action: how to create momentum that becomes self-sustaining, so that taking action becomes easier and more natural over time. When I called my disciples to follow me, they didn't just make a single decision and then coast on that choice for the rest of their lives. Every day they had to choose again, to follow, to trust, to act in alignment with what they were learning. But as they continued making these choices, something beautiful happened. The momentum of faith began to carry them forward, making each subsequent choice easier and more natural. This is the secret that most people miss about transformation. Action creates energy, and energy creates more action. The hardest part is not maintaining momentum, it's getting started. But once you force yourself to take the first few steps, momentum begins to build, and what once required enormous effort becomes increasingly effortless. Most people wait for motivation to create action, but this has the process backwards. Action creates motivation. Momentum creates enthusiasm. Success creates confidence. You don't need to feel like doing something to force yourself to do it. You force yourself to do it so that you will eventually feel like doing it. Let me show you how to build unstoppable momentum in any area of your life. Start with ridiculously small actions. The biggest mistake people make when trying to force themselves into action is starting too big. They try to completely overhaul their lives overnight, which creates overwhelming resistance and inevitable failure. Instead, start with actions so small that they feel almost silly. If you want to write a book, commit to writing 1 paragraph per day. If you want to start a business, commit to spending 10 minutes per day on business activities. If you want to improve your relationship with God, commit to 1 minute of prayer each morning. These small actions serve multiple purposes. They prove to yourself that you can follow through on commitments. They begin creating new neural pathways in your brain, and they start building the identity of someone who takes action toward their goals. Create non-negotiable minimums. Once you've identified your ridiculously small starting actions, make them absolutely non-negotiable. Treat them with the same seriousness you would treat taking medication that keeps you alive. These are not suggestions or preferences. They are commitments that you keep regardless of how you feel, what else is happening in your life, or what excuses your mind generates. This non-negotiable attitude is crucial because it eliminates the daily decision-making process that drains your willpower. You don't waste energy every day deciding whether to take your minimum action. You just do it, the same way you brush your teeth or put on clothes. Track your consistency, not your results. Most people get discouraged when they don't see immediate results from their actions, but this focuses on the wrong metric. In the beginning, the goal is not results, it's consistency. Track how many days in a row you take your committed action, not how much progress you've made toward your ultimate goal. Consistency is the foundation of all lasting change. A small action taken consistently for a year will create far more transformation than a large action taken sporadically for a month. Celebrate small wins. Every time you follow through on your commitment, especially when you don't feel like it, acknowledge this as a victory. You are proving to yourself that you are someone who keeps their word, someone who can be trusted to follow through, someone who chooses growth over comfort. These small celebrations reinforce the neural pathways associated with taking action and make it more likely that you will continue the behavior in the future. Gradually increase the challenge. Once your minimum daily action becomes truly automatic, meaning you do it without internal debate or resistance, you can gradually increase the challenge. Add 5 more minutes to your practice. Write 1 additional paragraph. Make 1 more business call. But increase slowly and only after the current level has become completely natural. The goal is sustainable growth, not impressive spurts that burn out quickly. Connect each action to your larger purpose. Never let your daily actions become mere habits disconnected from meaning. Regularly remind yourself how each small action connects to your larger purpose, your service to others, your spiritual growth. When writing that daily paragraph, remember that you're developing the discipline and skills to share your message with the world. When making that daily business call, remember that you're building something that will serve others and provide for your family. When spending that daily minute in prayer, remember that you're deepening your relationship with divine love. Use accountability and community. Share your commitments with people who will lovingly hold you accountable. Join communities of people who are working towards similar goals. Sometimes the gentle pressure of knowing others are watching can provide the extra motivation you need to push through resistance. But choose your accountability partners wisely. You want people who will encourage your growth, not enable your excuses. Plan for and expect resistance. There will be days when every fiber of your being resists taking your committed action. This is normal and expected. It is not a sign that you're on the wrong path or that the practice isn't working. Plan in advance how you will handle these resistance days. Maybe you'll remind yourself that you only need to do the minimum. Maybe you'll remember your deeper why. Maybe you'll force yourself to take just the first step, trusting that momentum will carry you through the rest. The key is to never negotiate with resistance. Don't debate with it. Don't try to reason with it. Don't wait for it to go away. Just acknowledge its presence and take your committed action anyway. Trust the process. There will be periods when you don't see obvious progress, when your efforts feel futile, when you wonder if your actions are making any difference. This is where faith becomes crucial. Faith that consistent action allied with divine purpose always creates transformation, even when you can't see it happening. Nae ect claris sur. Trust that every action you take is like a deposit in a spiritual bank account that will compound over time. Trust that you are becoming the person who is capable of living your dreams, even if the external circumstances haven't shifted yet. Remember, my beloved, that I spent 30 years in preparation for 3 years of ministry. Those 30 years of consistent, often unseen spiritual development created the foundation that made the visible ministry possible. Your daily actions, even when they seem small and insignificant, are preparing you for the fullness of your purpose. The momentum of faith is not built through grand gestures or peak experiences. It is built through the accumulation of small, consistent choices to align with your highest calling. Each time you force yourself to take action when you don't feel like it, you are building spiritual muscle that will serve you for a lifetime. My dearest children, as we near the completion of our journey together today, I want to paint for you a vision of who you become when you master the art of forcing yourself to take action. This transformation is not just about accomplishing external goals. It is about becoming the kind of person who can be trusted by divine love to carry out important missions in the world. When Peter stepped out of the boat to walk on water, he was not just taking a physical step. He was transforming from a person who was limited by circumstances to a person who could transcend limitations through faith and action. In that moment, he discovered that he was capable of far more than he had ever imagined. This is what happens when you consistently force yourself past resistance into aligned action. You discover that your true nature is not the fearful, procrastinating person you thought you were, but a divine being capable of extraordinary things when connected to infinite love and power. Let me describe the person you are becoming. You become unshakable. When you have repeatedly proven to yourself that you can act despite fear, that you can move forward despite uncertainty, that you can keep commitments even when motivation wanes, you develop an unshakable confidence in your ability to handle whatever life brings. This is not arrogance or overconfidence. It is the deep knowing that comes from experience. You have walked through fire and discovered that you don't burn. You have faced your fears and found that they were smaller than you thought. You have taken risks and learned that even failure teaches valuable lessons and opens new doors. This unshakability becomes a gift to everyone around you. In a world full of people who are paralyzed by indecision and overwhelmed by possibilities, you become a stabilizing presence, who can be counted on to act when action is needed. You become a magnet for opportunities. The universe responds to action takers differently than it responds to dreamers and planners. When you consistently take steps toward your goals, even small steps, you create what I call divine magnetism. You become attractive to the opportunities, resources, and people that can help you succeed. This happens for both practical and spiritual reasons. Practically, taking action makes you visible to others who might want to partner with you or support your efforts. Spiritually, action demonstrates to the universe that you are serious about your intentions, that you can be trusted with greater opportunities and resources. You will find that synchronicities increase in your life, that lucky breaks happen more frequently, that the right people appear at the right time. This is not coincidence. It is the natural result of aligning your actions with divine purpose. You become a leader. Leadership is not about having a title or being in charge of others. Leadership is about being willing to go first, to take risks that others are afraid to take, to act when others are still debating and planning. As you develop the capacity to force yourself into action, others will naturally begin to look to you for guidance and inspiration. They will be drawn to your confidence, your willingness to face challenges, your ability to make things happen. But this leadership comes with responsibility. You become accountable, not just for your own growth, but for the example you set for others. Your willingness to take action gives others permission to take action in their own lives. You become a channel for miracles. When you consistently act from divine guidance rather than human limitation, you become available to be used as a channel for miraculous interventions in the world. Miracles don't happen to passive people. They happen through people who are willing to act as instruments of divine love. You will find yourself in situations where you are able to help others in ways that seem almost impossible. You will speak words that heal hearts, take actions that open doors, make connections that change lives. This is not because you are special, but because you have made yourself available to be used by love itself. You become fulfilled rather than successful. The world teaches people to pursue success, external achievements, recognition, accumulation. But when you learn to force yourself into actions aligned with your soul's purpose, you discover something far more valuable: fulfillment. Fulfillment comes from knowing that you are living authentically, that you are using your gifts in service of something greater than yourself, that you are becoming who you were created to be. This fulfillment is independent of external circumstances and cannot be taken away by changing conditions. But how do you maintain this transformation over time? How do you ensure that you don't slip back into old patterns of inaction and procrastination? Daily recommitment. Every morning, recommit to being a person of action. Don't take your transformation for granted or assume that you have arrived. Spiritual growth requires daily tending, like a garden that must be watered and weeded regularly. Continuous growth. As you become comfortable with your current level of action taking, stretch yourself into new areas of growth. Take on bigger challenges. Serve at higher levels. Trust divine guidance, even when it calls you into unfamiliar territory. Mentoring others. One of the best ways to maintain your own transformation is to help others develop their capacity for action. Mentor someone who is struggling with procrastination. Encourage someone who is afraid to pursue their dreams. Be the person who helps others discover their own divine power. Gratitude for the journey. Regularly acknowledge how far you have come, how much you have grown, how many lives you have touched through your willingness to act. This gratitude reinforces your new identity and makes it easier to continue growing. Remember, my beloved, that every person who has ever made a significant difference in the world, every prophet, every reformer, every healer, every teacher, was once someone who struggled with fear and resistance like you do now. The difference is that they learned to force themselves past their limitations into their divine potential. You are not trying to become someone you are not. You are becoming who you have always truly been beneath the layers of fear, doubt, and conditioning. You are becoming the action-taken, world-changing, miracle-working person that divine love created you to be. The world needs people who know how to take action, who can move from inspiration to implementation, who can bridge the gap between vision and reality. The world needs you to become fully who you are meant to be. And so, my most precious children, I leave you with this challenge. Stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect feeling. Stop allowing fear to masquerade as wisdom, resistance to disguise itself as patience.